with the rise of SMS and the popularity, that means more players in the space, more competitive, which eventually will lead to SMS regulation is my prediction for 2022.
It's not going to be summer anymore. We're going to be moving into winter here. Game of Thrones reference here, I guess. I feel like we got a lot of summer children here. They haven't seen winter yet. E-commerce has never truly seen a downturn. That is not going to continue. At some point, there has to be a little bit of a difficult time ahead. Those that have been doing things right and preparing and can see ahead on this will be just fine.
Q4 is the busiest time of year for e-commerce brands. And if there's one thing that rings true year in and year out, so you have to get your shoppers' attention quickly. SMS makes it easier than ever to connect with customers through their phones. Trusted by brands like Brooklinen, Native, Fanjoy, and more, Postscript is the go-to text message marketing platform for brands on Shopify and Shopify Plus. Learn more and get started with a free 30-day trial at postscript.io. Welcome to another week's episode of the Messenger Mastermind podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Horowitz, and today I'm joined by my incredible co-hosts, Ben Vandal and Mark Aruda. And let's just be honest. 2021 was a hell of a year, and 2022 is probably not going to get a whole lot better. So we're going to cover all the things that you just need to be aware of to either avoid and just make sure that it doesn't impact your business, or the things that you really need to prep for and get ahead of. So Mark, do you want to kick us off with your big thing to avoid for 2022?
Yeah, totally. 2022 is going to be an interesting year. I think that the pandemic and everything that's come in the process is going to just continue to have massive shifts in everything. And obviously, in my opinion, the first thing that I'm highlighting that everybody needs to kind of watch out for is, I think I'm finally going to say the death of email. And I've been anti that phrase for so many years. I hated it for years, as everybody said, there's no value there. It's an important staple for our business. And I think that we're starting to see that finally decay. And obviously this is because of Apple, iOS changes coming into play. We saw it happen, and we continue to see the damage that's created on the Facebook ad side. And I think that we are just starting to see what that is going to look like on the email side. For anyone that doesn't know, Apple is basically what they did for Facebook ads. They're going to be doing for email. They're going to do their privacy protection for users and make it more difficult for marketers to be able to track what's happening inside the inbox. And I think that that's going to basically put a big damper on everything email related. Now, that brings opportunity in other realms, but we're certainly looking less at investing in the email side of our business and finding other place to focus instead.
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate here. Just knowing and seeing the data from iOS 15 so far, it's really just screwing up reporting, like open rate reporting. There's not a ton of other major impacts that email for most brands has had so far. What I actually think, and I'll take the opposite side here, I think there will actually be a resurgence in email in 2022 because I feel like marketers are finally going to get smarter about how they've been using email. And obviously excluding you guys, because I respect your email program. I think what you guys do is a really good job. I think most marketers just mass blast tons of people. They don't have their automations really dialed in. They don't really think about segmentation. And the big piece, which honestly shocks me because this is like the oldest marketing playbook ever, is just data enrichment. Is there so much data that isn't currently in those platforms that has nothing to do with what Apple tracks, that there's so much new opportunity. And I think when I saw this coming, I started just researching a lot of direct mail. It was actually also the direct mail project I did with you guys that really put me down this path. There are so many tactics that direct mailers did with no data and no tracking, and it was all just guessing and testing, that I actually think there's going to be a new evolution of email where we're going to lose that engagement tracking. We're not going to know what's going to happen, but people are going to get so much more robust and smarter about how they think about their program that we're going to see this new evolution, and we're actually going to see email have a really big resurgence as it gets way more automated, way more not just data driven, but it's actually the automations are powered by more data, that we're going to see completely net new experiences come out. And I actually think that this is the shot in the arm that email has needed for a long time, because I do agree with you. Email has just been decaying. It's been dying a slow death for a very long time. I think this actually might be one of those shocks to the system that might inspire people to actually treat the channel properly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see it both ways, but I think Mark's more right than wrong here. I think less and less people just use email, especially as the new wave of the younger generation comes in. They're more into text messages. They're more open with text message marketing. They are using email less and less. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's a communication channel that is no longer really needed when you think about how accessible phones are and how accessible SMS programs are now. So, I mean, we'll find out, but it's a good take, and I do appreciate it. And we'll alternate here between negative and positive. So, one of my positive outlooks on the 2021, 2022 actually year is a great opportunity in connected TV ads. I think for the exact reason that we just mentioned about email, where text message marketing is more accessible. Now, this is a way for regular marketers who have content that they may have put on YouTube or any video content that they make at home can now reach people on TV, which has traditionally been only for the big guys. You know, it's been a partnership with networks where it's super, super expensive. And now with the birth of streaming and everybody has a streaming service, every TV pretty much in America is connected to the internet. Now marketers have access to reach people in a way that they never did, which is really an amazing opportunity for how many people watch connected and streaming devices at home.
Yeah, this is actually going to be mine as well, but I have a second one for later because I agree so strongly with this. I think when you put the ability of the data tracking of a digital platform with the incredible broad reach of TV, we're just gonna. To me, this is going to be the next generation of major ecom acquisition. Like I feel like paid social has dominated for the last decade, and don't get me wrong, I think TikTok will kind of be the last major player where there's still a lot of headroom and growth there. But I think that's going to be TikTok is going to end the paid social reign of ecom and just retail in general. And I think connected TV is going to open up this whole new area of growth. And a lot of the innovative marketers that I've been talking to recently, like Brett, when we interviewed him on the show recently, talked about this also. And Mike from Drip Drop, they both are just talking about really big investments, seeing huge returns. And I agree, Ben. I also think it's going to backdoor people to get onto linear. I think it's going to be that gap, that it's going to fill that gap that brands have always thought about, I can't afford TV. I think they're going to see the success on connected TV, take those learnings, and eventually graduate up into that old school linear TV if it still exists at that point. And I'm really, really bullish on this.
I hope you guys are right. I guess I'm going to disagree for 2022. I definitely think that it could be a big thing. I don't know if it's going to be there yet. I think it might need another year. I think that what might end up happening, if I was going to make a prediction for this, would be that a lot of brands are going to spend some money on this and not be able to find the return that they're really looking for. And I think that might leave a bad taste in their mouth. But I do think as it develops, that it will absolutely be a beast.
Okay, so we're just a little early. So Ben, do we want to get into your major thing to avoid and to stay away from?
Yeah, sure. And going back to the death of email, I think that means a rise in SMS, which we've been talking about for the past couple of years. But outlook toward 2022, I think with the rise of SMS and the popularity, that means more players in the space, more competitive, which eventually will lead to SMS regulation is my prediction for 2022. And what I mean by that is maybe an SMS spam folder, making it harder to kind of reach the customers where we don't just have that blanket access to them at any point like we do now. That could mean several different restrictions with stop language, with when we can contact clients, which is already changing in some states like Florida. It could also lead to higher prices. We're just wondering when the carriers and when the platforms start to really pass the expense on to us. So I think a lot is going to change in the SMS landscape. Doesn't mean it's not a great marketing tool. I still think it'll be the front runner. I think it'll be better than email in 2022. but I do think that that regulation is coming down the pike.
I agree with you, Ben. Absolutely. This is definitely going to be something to watch for. Hopefully we can buy some more time. But I will say that even with these potential negatives in the pipeline for SMS, I still am bullish on it. I still believe it's worth every effort of time, especially considering my take on the potential death of email. I think that makes perfect sense to then shift focus onto SMS. I think that it is going to be less of an issue for those that have already been investing in SMS for the last few years. Like, hopefully most of our listeners have. I think it's going to make things a lot easier if their lists are already built. And they can kind of get that step ahead to maybe, do things like have subscribers add their contacts to their phone list and things like that. There will be ways to hopefully make things a little bit easier if you're ahead of the game. So we've been saying it for years. Hopefully you've been listening. If not, pay attention now.
Yeah, I think this is probably the one thing that we'll all completely agree on and like check across the board. It's the death of the wild. It's not the death. It's the end of the Wild West in SMS. There's not going to be any more easy wins, like just blow stuff out of the water. It's really going to come down to, I completely agree with that. It's going to stabilize. It's going to become a lot of best practices and kind of what everybody else does. And then I agree on the pricing. SMS, if you're not familiar, is just a terrible margin for a lot of businesses. It's just so thin. Like email is virtually all margin, SMS is virtually no. And so I think a lot of the providers will just have to raise prices as they've now just had so much market penetration that like for them to make business, like for them to make money in their business, they're going to have to. And Ben, I agree. I'm on a Pixel phone and I see all the time like a message from an unknown number come in and it seems salesy. And there's a pop-up on the top of it from the like Google inbox that says report as spam, yes or no. And it will just automatically filter out. Like I don't even see the spam filter on my phone. And I think as everyone on Apple at the end of last year recently got the, oh, hey, now you can have focus mode. Things that will be tested and validated on Android, Apple will just roll out as well. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that kind of sweeping across the board. But I also agree, I don't think it's a bad thing. I still think it will turn into a lot of brands' number one retention channel. It will still be what most CRM managers focus on and really build out for their brands. And that's not to say that there aren't wins coming, but I do agree. I think it's going to be the kind of the year where the innovative marketers maybe shift attention out of SMS and the more of people like that mid-market and mass market of providers really focus on it more, which is going to be really interesting to see how that shakes and everything up. Okay, so Mark, we've gotten your negative down. What's your positive going to be?
Yep. I feel excited about my positive. I think it's just a natural course of how this goes. I talk about how email is going to get more difficult. I talk about how SMS might have a little bit more hurdles to kind of jump over. So I think where that kind of leads brands, and you're already seeing it a ton, is into content creation. So this is whether it's entertaining or educational or product focused, whatever it is, it's content created, whether in-house, whether you're subbing it out. This is attention is currency, right? So this is where you get your awareness. As big tech and privacy continues to get cracked down on more, it becomes more and more difficult to market in a traditional sense. It becomes much more broad and open. Segmentation is pulled out. So this kind of content creation where it's happening more organically, I think is super important. I think that Facebook is also realizing it because they're looking at TikTok and they're seeing what TikTok is doing. They realize that their demographic is getting older and they want to make a shift into more content creators. You're seeing it with YouTube as they continue to share ad revenue with content creators, which is making things like Facebook and Instagram look at how they can put budget into creators. Even Snapchat is putting large amounts of money up for grabs for content creators. I think all signs are pointing towards content creation 2022, number one most important thing in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll agree with that also. I also think that we're going to see kind of the transition of influencer marketing out of the how do we grab as much attention as possible? How do we gain as much clout as possible? How do we drive any traffic to the site? to fulfill more of just traditional marketing functions like content creation for ads, like affiliate programs. Like they're just going to slot these different groups of people into those more traditional roles. And what's really interesting is a lot of the other marketers I've been talking to recently are really focusing on just taking influencers as outside salespeople, figuring out what the pitch is, and then figuring out how to put that back into their own distribution channels. So whether that's having people create content to run as ads on the branded accounts, whether that's having them create their content to then push as whitelisted through the influencers accounts, whether it's just more of a traditional old school affiliate model where like we're just going to get people and they're just going to promote the product and they're just going to push sales. I think it's really going to fall into those things versus the more of, I feel like it was a little bit more of PR in the early days. It was a little bit more of creative, like how do we get more word of mouth? How do we get more of that kind of like a stunt marketing attention? I think it's really going to now transition into more of that processed, more of functional marketing in an organization. I think there's going to be a lot of just like standard adoption, similar to SMS, where it's just like everybody's going to do it now, and it's just going to have follow these common threads, and it's going to become a little less innovative in testing, which is a little sad, but I think it's going to become a lot more standardized across a lot more businesses. So I'm going to jump into my negative next. And the thing to avoid, I hope I say this early enough that more businesses can afford to avoid this, but I think there's going to be a real thinning of the herd in the e-com industry, to be perfectly honest. I think that there's been such a flood and so much growth over the past 4 to 5 years, and it's been really easy to get things spun up that I don't think a lot of brands are prepared for the just perfect storm of challenges that they're going to be facing. And I feel like we've been kind of intimating at this for a while, but I think 2022 is going to be the year that a lot of businesses will go out. So the reason why I think that, first, the ports are a legitimate issue that are going to put a real cash constraint on a lot of businesses. I just don't think that a lot of businesses are prepared financially, from a sales perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, to have that much cash sitting in inventory that's unsellable. And I think that's going to just stretch a lot of businesses thin. I think the second piece is, honestly, no offense to anybody who grew up on Facebook, but a lot of businesses I see just don't understand marketing. They understand Facebook. And I think that there's a legitimate difference in those two things. And I think it's critical to understand how to build your business off of Facebook. And I just don't think a lot of brands will know how to do that. And so unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people who just got great at selling product. I don't think there's a lot of people who transitioned that into building a business, which is the trend that I've seen all the successful e-com entrepreneurs be really successful at. The third piece is we're in a recession. No matter what you want to look at from the stock market, no matter what you want to consider from a bunch of economic factors, we are at all-time highs in a lot of very concerning processes. And there's a legitimate financial constraint on the consumer population. The part that I want to focus on there, whether we can get into a debate on the politics and economics of that, the more important thing is we saw a lot of demand pull forward, and we did not see a large population of people accumulate a lot of wealth during that time. And when you think about that from all of the factors, you're not going to be able to run ads. It's not going to be as able to get product in, and people aren't going to be buying as frequently and as much. And I think that a lot of people maybe just haven't seen bear markets before. They haven't seen tough times. I just don't see enough brands preparing themselves, shifting the budgets, shifting the focus to where they need to. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot of brands either get rolled up and acquired or just unfortunately go out of business. And it's going to be a really unfortunate thing to see.
I definitely agree with you, Jeremy. Game of Thrones reference here, I guess. I feel like we got a lot of summer children here. They haven't seen winter yet. E-commerce has never truly seen a downturn. Like every year of e-commerce has just been another lift. It's only gotten better. And as Jeremy said, that pull forward in the last year to 2 years has been amazing. It has rapidly increased everything e-commerce. We saw 10 years of growth all in the matter of a year or two. So like that is not going to continue, maybe for some, if you're in the right space, but let's be honest, at some point there has to be a little bit of a difficult time ahead. And I think you're right, Jeremy. I don't want to specifically call out drop shippers, but we know that they have kind of lived and died off of Facebook, and Facebook is doing a little bit more dying than living these days. So obviously that's not going to work too well for them. So I think those that maybe were cutting things close are probably going to see some tough times. I don't want to say closing of doors, but it's not going to be summer anymore. We're going to be moving into winter here, and those that have been doing things right and preparing and can see ahead on this will be just fine, and hopefully will do better because of the fact that that herd has been thinning.
Yeah, I think the real world examples for this, two great industries that just came to mind right when Jeremy was talking was golf and craft beer, which are two things that I'm pretty heavily interested in. But what happens is there's a golf boom. It becomes popular. It's accessible for a lot of people. And then a bunch of golf courses get built, and then the prices go up, and then suddenly there's less golfers. Those golf courses go out of business. This is very similar to what we're dealing with now. The same thing with craft beer. Craft beer prices go up. Less people want to drink it because it's too expensive, or seltzer comes along, something comes out and cuts their throat and puts them out of business, So there'll be a ton of new stores, a ton of different ways to buy things, still the same number of people to buy things, still the same number of dollars out there, if not even less. Like Jeremy said, we're in a recession. So that's an unfortunate thing. And I think another thing that people don't realize when they get into this, they build a store, it is kind of easy to get the ball rolling, and you reach these unbelievable logistical hurdles that you don't even know exist until you get further into the game. And Mark can probably speak more about this. He's tackled everyone so far. So you just keep getting over them, and then you have a whole new world of problems that open up, or opportunities as well, that take you out. And if you're not super narrowly focused, you spread yourself too thin, and the glass cracks, and you're underwater. So I think you're spot on. It is sad to hear something like that. I mean, this is like an industrial boom for our time, and it has to have a back pull. And I think you're right. I think it's coming this year.
Yeah. So not to make that a complete negative, the one benefit of that is I think the brands that survive it and can even thrive during that period will see unprecedented growth. And there's going to be a lot of great teams to hire, a lot of great products and companies to roll up under those winners. And then my actual positive, and where I think really everybody needs to steer into, is going to be the resurgence of mobile app. I really think, I know we've talked about it a bunch, we've recorded a couple episodes. I've been talking with a lot of other companies recently, and I think that this is really, like, we're going to see a second coming of mobile apps, and it's going to be completely different. And so some quick context, if you haven't thought about it, or if you haven't gotten into mobile apps, 6 to 10 years ago, it was all about, this is the new sales channel, this is the future. Everybody needs to get on a mobile app because that's where customers are. And then, kind of a similar thing that we were just talking about, got way oversaturated. People didn't want to download apps anymore, and it kind of died out. And what's really interesting, and I feel like you guys were like the CVG mobile app, and what we talked about, we're really one of the first to really push this, is using your mobile app as a retention channel and using your mobile app to extend CLV. And I think we're going to see a resurgence of that, of instead of trying to get everybody possible to download a mobile app, it's really a specific targeted marketing channel, not a sales channel, to bring people back, to keep people engaged. And I think we're going to see a resurgence of a lot of brands be a lot smarter, be a lot more targeted in how they deploy it. And then there are a lot more out of the box offerings where you don't have to go build it yourself. You don't have these crazy integrations that I think will also make it more accessible, that people will no longer treat it as we need to move over our entire customer base. It's more, we need to move over our extremely loyal people, because then they will be able to bring more people back. So I think that's going to be a really big resurgence, that for the companies that do have good retention, like an economics of their business built in, will really focus on and really invest in those super purchasers.
Totally agree. This has been something that we've been working on for the last year. It's been going very well. I think your perspective is spot on in the sense of that, an app isn't something that you try to move everybody over to. It's more something of maybe your diehards and people that really want to stay up to date. And I think that it's solidified even further when we talk about the fact that I believe that email is going to get more difficult, and that SMS might have some bumps in the road. So when we think about like all of our marketing, where are we driving people? Where are we trying to move our VIPs over to? It's not maybe so much to the Facebook group anymore or follow us on social. Instead, it's go join our app. And, if you're a one-time customer and you're just going to be in and out, you probably don't care that much about it. But if you want to buy 10 times, that's a great place to be. And being able to have a really clear touch point of like a push notification, some direct point that something like Facebook or email can't filter out for us, is going to be really the difference in, a company that built a strong base to be able to reach those customers, and a company who's relying on a pay-to-play platform.
Yeah, it's a big investment. It's a huge investment. You got to sit down. You got to know your numbers. How much does a app lead translate to in the long run? I mean, I think some people might hear this and underestimate how difficult it is to keep an app user engaged day over day, week over week, month over month. How difficult of a message it is to translate to them that they download the app to do, community-based things or whatever you want them to do on the app. It's a different set of challenges, but yeah, I think ultimately it's worth it. It's outstanding. Like Mark said, the ability to reach people in a different way that might supersede SMS in some people's mind. They might get more push notifications from apps than they do SMS, or definitely more than emails. It's more eye-catching. You're in that person's pocket, every day. So it's definitely an important tool, but it's a whole new bag of worms, or can of worms, whatever that saying is.
Yeah, definitely. I think also, just to like double down on your last point there, right? Like, big focus, get people off of paid channels to own channels because the proportion is so much cheaper. But if you can get somebody even off of an email or an SMS onto a push notifications are free. So like everything is positive ROAS from there. So I think that is a really interesting thing. So we know that 2021 was absolutely crazy. 2022, we're not going to make any really strong predictions, although we did definitely make some strong predictions today that it's going to be another insane year. So just to quickly recap, Mark, we had death of email, and then content creators are going to take over your business and be the new rise, and really big piece of it. Ben, SMS regulation is coming. And then it's going to be the year that connected TV really has that innovative moment. And then for myself, unfortunately, I think we're going to see a thinning of the herd, but we're also going to see a lot of businesses really double down on their mobile apps, their retention, and bring people back. And the businesses that can navigate all of this, right, will see unprecedented growth and just really set themselves up for a decade of amazing growth that they can experience in their business. So we would love to know what you're focusing on this year. If you have any thoughts, let us know in the comments down below. We're really excited for this year. We think it's going to be one of the most fun we've ever had. So let's get after it. Thanks for listening to another week's episode of the Messenger Mastermind podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with another e-commerce marketer. And always let us know what you think down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. If you're looking for cutting edge tactics and the resources that we rely on to run our businesses, sign up for our newsletter. We'll include a link down below. As always, stay confident, connect with your customers, and keep crushing it.